Tim McConaughey,
Cammy
Anderson. Oh, what? Sorry, mate.
You're on mute.
I was on mute. What a wally. Let's. I mean, that's indicative of
Nobody's seen it
the
anyway.
kind of vibe we're gonna be having today. What I tried to say was, hello everyone, Matt here from UK Nets fans, and I'm joined as ever by Aidan McConaughey and Cammy Anderson for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. It's been a minute since we came to see you in the pod feed and live all over the place, but we've licked our wounds, we've picked ourselves up off the floor, and now's time. Now is time to discuss that the Brooklyn Nets season is over. It's gone. We didn't even make the conference finals. But before we get into that, we'll be chatting a little bit about the latest Nets news. We're going to be talking about the Bucks series as a whole, some of your listener questions, and much, much more. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans. The pod itself on Twitter at BK2UK Pod. Check us out on YouTube, where you can watch back all of our episodes. We're also now streaming live on Twitch and Periscope, so you can join us there too. If you are joining us live, please drop comments throughout the show, and we'll share our best on the screen, and we'll do our best to get back to all your questions on the pod. With that out of the way, let's get into it. And some Olympics news to start us off with. Let's start with something light-hearted before we delve into what we really come here to talk about. But it was a little bit of the okie dokie. So KD is committed to the Tokyo Olympics. Harden came in, and then Harden pulled out again. Backed out so he could concentrate on rehabbing his hamstring injury. Team USA, the 12-man roster consists of Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, Zach LaVine, Kevin Love, all right, Bam Adebayo, Draymond Green, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Jeremy Grant. It's not a bad team, to be fair. Lads, how do you feel about the two Nets representatives on Team USA?
I mean, I think KD going is a tricky one. It's good in the sense that he's wanting to continue playing, and you can kind of get the feeling that he feels a bit let down with how our season ended, so he's wanting to kind of get some silver, well, in the Olympics case, some gold over the summer to kind of make up for missing out on the championship. As for Harden, I think it made perfect sense for him to pull out. He obviously played on one leg in the latter end of the Bucks series, and you can only kind of really give him a lot of praise for pushing through and doing that, but really he didn't have to. There's a real risk of it. So yeah, I think rehabbing's the best case scenario here. As for KD, as great as it is to see him there, I would have probably liked him to not have went, just for the sake he's had his injury problems throughout the season, and it's a big season ahead next season. We all kind of tipped it this season to be the title winning season, especially after Harden came in. Next season, the expectation is going to be even greater. We kind of messed up to a degree in first time round, so second time lucky, hopefully, next year. And I'd just like to hope that KD comes back perfectly healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I found it strange when Harden committed in the first place, but again, I think that's just his desire to play basketball that we've seen in this last series. And I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised either if Kevin Durant decided not to go. I mean, there was plenty of guys that have had quite healthy seasons that have decided to sit out for this one and just get their bodies right. I mean, let's face it, it's been a long time for some of these guys that have maybe played in the bubble and then went straight into the new season. And you'd think this is the perfect time to take a break before going into the next season, especially for guys that are slightly older. But I mean, in terms of Harden, it's going to be a really good opportunity for him to get his body right. I mean, we kind of didn't talk about it for a while after he came in and just went off. But let's face it, he probably didn't have the best preseason at the start of this one when he was kind of not going to training for Houston and whatnot. We kind of stopped talking about it a bit. But let's face it, he did come to Brooklyn and he wasn't in peak health. And I don't think that had anything to do with his hamstring injury. It's one of those things where you can be 110% healthy and you can just pick up a hamstring injury. It's frustrating, but it's going to be a really good opportunity for him to get that right. In terms of KD, yeah, I think he's going to dominate the Olympics, and yeah, it's going to be proper Kobe and LeBron at the Olympics. I think they're just him and Dame Lillard and whatnot will go insane, and it'll be really good watching. But like Cammy said, he just needs to come back safe and healthy. I think that's one thing personally that I've taken in this off season compared to last year is health really isn't guaranteed, and I think my expectations are slightly less because of the health that we've seen this year. And I just really hope that we get all 3 stars fit and healthy going into the next season, because it's going to be really, really important.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? It's like since those injuries come off, I don't know if you guys are the same as me, but it always just feels like in the back of your head, you're just waiting for something rotten to happen, especially with KD's history, and now James Harden's hamstring has hampered his Nets career already. So it's really good that you say like he does come off and doesn't go, but you know at least KD's not going to be playing 48 minutes a game when it comes to the Tokyo Olympics. So you know hopefully he'll play a solid 18 minutes, like a 20-minute game or something, and he'll come back right as rain. But I thought one advantage to KD going over is, you know, not that he's going to tamper, obviously, because, you know, we know that the NBA is listening to this pod. But, you know, players talk. We've seen it with, you know, how this Brooklyn Nets team came into existence. So I was just wondering, out of all those people, I don't know if you've got it in front of you, but if you could kind of cherry pick one person for KD to kind of have a little word in their ear, just to be like, it's all right over here in Brooklyn, you know. I don't know who would you kind of pick? I know who I'm picking.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the roster up in front of me. Cammy, on you go, and I'll have a think about it.
I mean, there's a kind of sensible, and I'm saying realistic. It's not realistic, but just kind of given the rumours, you'd say Dame Lillard based on the kind of rumours, and you'd say, oh well, just come here. But if it was just whoever I really wanted, it's Devin Booker. Just he comes in, Kyrie, KD, Harden in 2-3 years' time go away. Booker then hits his peak, and we've got Devin Booker. I mean, I'd quite like that. Obviously, if we could then somehow bring D'Lo back and get Cat in as well, we can
bring D'Lo back.
have
becoming a meme, Cammy.
Yeah, so it is, but yeah, that would just be class. All 3 of them playing together. We thought kind of KD and Kyrie would be fun, 2 really good pals. Imagine those 3 all together, all really good pals. They'd love basketball, and yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think I'll say Dame Lillard for a semi-realistic, definitely not realistic, but kind of on that on that line.
As realistic as it can be, anyway. What are you saying?
Yeah, just having a look. Kevin Love's not a bad idea. He could get bought out quite soon. We need big bodies this year. I know he's probably not going to get them this year, but maybe in the next couple of years when we're looking at those vet minimums, someone like that would be great. Jeremy Grant as well. What a great player. He'd be perfect in this team in terms of wing defending, and his favourite player of all time is Kevin Durant. So there we go. I don't know. I don't think that's what this is for this summer. I think it's just KD out there just to show how good he actually is and pick up another gold medal. But I'd take someone like Kevin Love on a vet minimum any day of the week.
Now, imagine how annoyed Detroit Pistons fans would be if Blake Griffin comes to the Nets after his last season with them, and then we take Jeremy Grant as well. That would be absolutely horrific. But I'd love to see Bam Adebayo on this team. That's one that won't happen, obviously. None of this is going to happen, but it's just fun to speculate in it. But yeah, I can see Kevin Love coming over. Obviously, hates playing in Cleveland. So yeah, that's one to think about. But yeah, upshot is just come home healthy. Matty Riley in the chat says if it meant getting a 5 in the off season, preferably who? So we'll come back to that. And he says Miles Turner, which is a nice little shout if we do make some moves in the off season. But Matty, we will come to that in the listener question portion of the show. Talking postseason awards, obviously we've been saying a little bit on the pod that it's kind of it would have been the executive of the year has come out, and it would have been Sean Marks's award to lose, really, but he didn't win it, so there we are. So he's come third. The winner was the Suns' James Jones, and I don't think you can really argue with how well they've done. Although, is it? Well, I don't know. Well, I suppose we'll get into it. And then it's Utah second, and the Nets third. Aiden, you were shaking your head pretty readily. What do you make of it?
I mean, we kind of gave Monty Williams plenty of praise, and I think that is completely deserved when he won. Did he win Coach of the Year? I think he did, didn't he? No, I don't know. But anyway, in terms of James Jones, congratulations. Obviously, the Suns have had an incredible year. But I actually don't think he deserves Executive of the Year. I mean, since he came in, I think he became the Suns GM, I think it was 2016 or 2017. And he's been one of these GMs that's tanked for draft picks. They've got a few good players, obviously. Let's not lie. They've got Devin Booker. They've got DeAndre Ayton, who were always going to be good players. But they have kind of botched a few as well. And let's face it, the only really big move they've made is signing Chris Paul. And I think if you're going for Executive of the Year just this year, you just need to look at what Sean Marks has actually done. He's traded for a top 5 player in the league. That never happens. It very rarely happens. I can't even recall a top 5 player moving like that in recent years. They've signed Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge to minimum deals while still keeping that mid-level exception, which we never even used. We made great trades for Shamet, Brown. We brought in probably one of the most incredibly talented coaching teams ever that never won a ring, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, I just don't understand why Sean Marks hasn't won. I thought he should have won last year as well for his off-season moves. I don't know if it's West Coast bias. I'm starting to think it is. You just need to look at recent years, and they do seem to pick up the awards more often than none. And yeah, it was disappointing. I felt like that was one kind of staple for us to get at after an injury-hampered year where we didn't really win many awards. I thought that was something that was going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I don't really think you can give James Jones the award when he's really not done that much this year. I mean, they've done great, but he's not done much overall, to be honest.
See, I'm going to disagree in that, as you were saying, yes, they've tanked, but then you see so many teams in American sports tank and just stay continually bad, whereas they managed to bring in a player in Chris Paul, and that move has catapulted the Suns from being one of the kind of bottom teams to a team who I kind of fancy to go all the way now. And I think at the start of the season, none of us would have sat here and said, yeah, Chris Paul coming in has done that. But just that one move, I can't think of a move that another team's made in the league that's had such an impact, literally turning the team from one of the worst to one of the best. Obviously, I agree with what you're saying regarding Marks. I think the fact he finished third is insane. Utah Jazz obviously had a fantastic season, obviously like the playoffs as well, and they, what was it, the best record in the West ended up having, and that wasn't something we could have predicted happening either. But Marks, I think, deserves great praise, and I think he should know himself that what he's done deserves a lot of credit, and hopefully next year, once he builds this team up again, that there could be lots of changes. Hopefully gets recognised next year if he leads us to the championship. But yeah, I think James Jones winning it, you can certainly understand the reasons behind it.
It's one of them. It's just like, because obviously it's under the same bracket as MVP and Defensive Player of the Year and stuff, and those are obviously regular season awards. So is this Exec of the Year a regular season award? I'd argue that it is. So kind of like you were saying, Aiden, it's just like we finished, a game behind Philly for second in the East. So, even though the Suns have obviously gone on and looks like they may make the finals, then, have that as kind of putting them over Sean Marks, it's a bit weird to me. So, yeah, maybe I am a little bit more put my nose out of joint than I thought I was with Sean not getting this one. But yeah, I don't think he'll give 2 minutes thought to it. So I suppose it's a bit silly of us to do it, but we'll do it. We'll argue it for. We'll get mad for him. He was robbed, just like we were robbed of certain other things. But we'll come on to that later, I'm sure. Talking more front office stuff, I've called this one in the notes assistant poaches, because it seems like all of that star-studded assistant coach roster that Mark's assembled to come in and to help Steve Nash on his maiden year as a head coach. They've all obviously made really good accounts of themselves, and and they're getting lots of attention from other teams. Obviously, Ime Udoka has been announced as the Boston Celtics head coach for next season. Great news for him. Then there's also Jacques Vaughn, who was heavily rumored with a lot of people, including the Pelicans. And then even Mike D'Antoni was, I think, had a second interview with the Blazers before they ultimately landed on Chauncey Billups for their head coach. What do you guys think this kind of means for the Net staff going forward? Is this just a good reflection on the team? Are you worried about gaps in our kind of coaching staff? What do you guys make of it?
I think it certainly says a lot about the team that was kind of constructed for the coaching team. A lot of these guys came a bit unknown to us, but maybe not so unknown to others. And yeah, the fact that Ime Udoka has been appointed as the head coach of a historic franchise like the Celtics, for it being his first gig, it certainly speaks well of him. And also, it's fantastic that we've had him in the kind of coaching staff. As for Jacques Vaughn, I think last summer before Nash was appointed, we were all kind of probably geared up for Vaughn actually getting the gig on a permanent basis. And I don't think any of us would have been too upset had he been given it full time. So obviously, we kind of know a bit more about him than we do the others. And then also D'Antoni, the fact we had him in the first place was outstanding. A heavily experienced coach, and the fact that the Blazers have went for Billups over him, I mean, yeah, I think that's better for us. Obviously, get to keep an experienced coach, but yeah, I think there's still going to be some movement. Amari Stoudemire, I want to say I've seen something about him potentially considering returning to playing.
I've seen that.
I mean, whether how much is in that, I don't know, but that could be another way. And the fact we've managed to kind of bring this coaching team together already would kind of give me some hope for kind of this coming season, that we'll be able to recruit some more up and coming coaches, maybe some of the good college guys. And I mean, yeah, we've managed to do it once. Why can't we do it again? If we lose some, I mean, it maybe bodes well for the future that other guys see us as a bit of a stepping stone. We get the short-term benefit. They get to move on to another gig. And yeah, hopefully it brings us championships if we keep bringing in good coaches.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to happen. I think the Nets probably knew it was going to happen. And they managed to bring in such a talented coaching staff behind Steve Nash for his first year. And I think he'll probably be forever grateful for that, for learning off of some of these guys. But Sean Marks has always kind of been that guy where he's never stood in the way of coaches moving on to bigger roles elsewhere. He's always said it in interviews. It's quite clever. It's a good tactic to kind of say these things and get people in. He just looks as that guy that just wants to better everyone. And it's definitely played in his favour, especially this year. But I mean, Mike D'Antoni, let's face it, as Cammy said, it did catch us all off guard when that got announced. We were like, how the hell have we managed to pull off a guy like that as an assistant when he really should be a head coach somewhere? He is a fantastic coach. And yeah, I was absolutely baffled that he never got a head coaching role in the first place. But it's just one of those things that I think it's going to be a big opportunity for Steve Nash. I mean, if we hold on to some of them, fantastic. But it's going to be an opportunity for him to stand on his own 2 feet and maybe make some decisions that he would have maybe bounced off other guys last year. I remember when he first came in, he asked Dirk Nowitzki if he wanted to join his team. And at the time he said, no, it's not the right time for me. Maybe it's the right time. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think it was one of the Dallas games at the end. They asked Nash a question about Dirk and he said, he is interested in getting back involved in getting coaching. I don't know if that was a preloaded question, and there is already information floating around there that Nowitzki could potentially come in. And I think that'd be incredible if we could get him in somehow and to work with our big guys. So yeah, I think it opens up opportunities, as Cammy said. There's definitely room for us to improve again. I mean, if we do lose the guys, great for them, obviously. But yeah, I don't doubt that we can bring in a coaching team that can do it. And yeah, I just think it's going to be really interesting. It could be one of those things where it is as interesting of an off-season coaching-wise as it is player-wise. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's one of the. I think I saw something that Dirk's gone back to Dallas, hasn't he? As a special advisor.
Didn't see that.
So yeah, that's looking not as likely, unfortunately. But yeah, that would imagine if if you.
I wish I could go back in time and just delete that because I was so happy with all my notes there.
I could. I'm probably wrong, but it's one of those. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the, I think going back to Udoka going to the Celtics, he kind of came in as like the defensive specialist kind of guy, didn't he? And that was very much his calling card and what he could kind of hang his hat on. And I think obviously the Nets defense was in question all season. But I think the defense was good enough for what we needed it to be with the roster we had. Obviously, we've been crying out for ages for like a lockdown wing defender, a better rim protection, and all that kind of stuff. I know defense is a lot more than that. But I think any flaws that the Nets had defensively this season doesn't necessarily reflect badly on Udoka or his defensive nous or whatever that may be. I think we were super duper switchy. And I think that kind of style of defense comes from, the team all buying in, and it's more kind of philosophy based than running kind of, a 3-2 zone like we kind of were a lot of the season previous. So yeah, I think good luck with him in Boston. But then I was thinking, obviously, there's a lot of coaches getting around and getting sort of rumored to be with other people. Is there any coaches that you could fancy? But joining the Nets, the only one that I would kind of think is there's been a lot of positive talk about Phil Handy. And I know he was kind of rumored to be coming in as a potential head coach before Steve Nash got appointed. So that might be a cool one. Obviously, he's won a lot of rings, and he's a really, really good coach. I was just, I know I've kind of jumped this question on you guys without any prior, but is there anyone that you would kind of quite like to see? Obviously, J Kidd is off the table. He's gone off somewhere. So no more J Kidd. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I've really put me on the spot here. Probably just kind of an older kind of player, whether it's a former Net or just someone just kind of like a kind of Nowitzki in a sense, a kind of player of that caliber. Whether you maybe even try and tempt LaMarcus Aldridge into coaching, I don't know what his plans are for his retirement, but obviously in the kind of limited time we've seen him, he showed some flashes of a player who was one of the better players in the NBA for a considerable amount of time. So whether he'd want that, we were also really good with him. So maybe he'd want to repay that favour and maybe come in and give us a little hand.
I think that's a good shout. I think that was actually talked about with LaMarcus Aldridge, that they would love to get him back in some form of coaching role. I think probably he could take a couple of years before that happens, just to take some time with his family after such a quick retirement. But yeah, I'd probably agree with Cammy there. I'd like to see quite a young team behind Steve Nash, just for a bit of a fresh approach. I mean, Mike D'Antoni's probably been absolutely excellent, and I do hope that he's still going to be there next year. But yeah, I'd like to see some younger guys in there, just for a fresh-faced approach, because I think that's been a lot of the reason why they brought Nash in the first place. It's because guys like KD and Kyrie, I think they wanted a young guy to work with like that. And so yeah, it'll be really interesting. And to be honest with you, I could make a prediction, but I'll be wrong, because I certainly didn't expect to have the team that we did this year. And next year it's probably going to be a full list of guys that I never expected could even be considered. So yeah, it'll be really, really interesting, as I said. And I think there'll be quite a few shocks. I saw Penny Hardaway was going for the Orlando Magic job, which I think is really, really cool. So yeah, there'll be plenty of guys looking for jobs this off season. So it'll be quite interesting to see who comes in.
Give me Vince Carter. That's what I want to see. Bring Vinsanity back to the Nets. That'd be dope. A couple more quick little stories just before we get into. We're gonna have to talk about this Bucks series. I'm putting it off, but it's gonna have to happen. Spencer Dinwiddie has been cleared to return to all basketball activity. So he would have been available for the Eastern Conference Finals and Finals had the Nets made it. And he's also officially declined the option, his player option, which we all knew he would anyway, in search of a payday or a homecoming. So that's left it pretty blatant as what he wants to do. We had a listener question from George Reddick from Twitter. Thank you, George. He says, everything pointing to a Dinwiddie sign-in trade. who would you realistically go for from either LA team? So if you wanted to go to LA, you can pick someone from the Clippers, someone from the Lakers. Obviously, we spoke a lot about a potential Kuzma trade in the last time we podded, but what do you guys think of, Spencer returning? Obviously, his timing is horrible, and potentially a swap for one of the LA players.
Yeah, I'd say I don't think there's a scenario where he ends up back in Brooklyn. First of all, I'll just say, if it's never been more obvious than it is now that Spencer Dinwiddie and Shams are like best friends, and he definitely just DMs him on the constant, just telling him what he wants him to tweet out just for his own benefit, because that happens all the time. But yeah, I don't think he'll end up in Brooklyn, and I think there's a good chance that he's probably already got some form of agreement with one of the LA teams. I'd say that, obviously a tampering move, but I'd say there's a good chance there's already been some discussions with the Lakers. I reckon we've already seen in the past that LeBron absolutely loves Spencer. He tried to trade for him when he was in Cleveland a few years ago with their first, but they never got him in the end. So maybe this is the opportunity. I'd probably agree with Matt in terms of Montrezl Harrell would be my main option. You need to get some size back if we're going to get anyone at all. For obvious reasons, obviously with the last series. If you're going Clippers, Serge Ibaka, but I don't think he's probably going to be available just because he didn't play much this year, and I reckon they'll want to have a good look at him next year. But yeah, Montrezl Harrell, I'm not part of the Kyle Kuzma bandwagon, but I'll certainly take Montrezl Harrell because he is an absolute dog, and he's not been used very well at the Lakers as he was at the Clippers, so I could see the Nets getting the best out of him.
I mean, he'd probably my choice as well for the Lakers. Obviously, a big man, something we lacked throughout the season. Obviously, once Jarrett Allen departed. As for the Clippers, I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball and maybe not a name most expected. And I don't know how this would work if we went down the kind of sign and trade route. Rajon Rondo. Now, hear me out on this. Obviously, Dinwiddie is departing. He's a kind of second string point guard if you're classing Kyrie as a shooting guard. You let go the second point guard in Dinwiddie. You need someone to come with a bit of experience. Who's got more experience at point guard currently in the league than Rajon Rondo? I doubt there's many players. Just a player with insane kind of just court intelligence, basketball intelligence, like all that kind of thing. And whilst his peak is undoubtedly past him, he just kind of strikes me as a player who would come in and just do really well. Obviously, would help the few kind of younger guys on the team, but just a guy who, he didn't really set the world alight at the Clippers. His numbers haven't been fantastic or anything like that. But yeah, I just it was a name when I was looking at names who we could go for. It was just one that I thought that could work in a kind of strange roundabout way. As for Spence, he's definitely not coming back to us. I did find the timing of his announcement that he was cleared a bit strange. No sooner were we out the playoffs than the kind of all the announcements, he's cleared and stuff. That could have been purely coincidental. I know in these instances, players have kind of timelines and whatnot. It might have just happened that was it, but it did just seem a bit weird that we went out and it's all right now I'm available again, or I could have been available for the next round. And that's, if that's true, fantastic. Congratulations to Spence on recovering so quickly, and we obviously hope to see him do so well. But it's just, it's a bit annoying. If it was true and we managed to make it through, you can't help but wonder what would have happened.
Yeah, it's a truth. That's a wicked point about Rondo. That's a really, really good shout. Because I think had Spencer been healthy this season, and he was still in this team post Harden trade, because we don't know about that, but he would have absolutely been. He probably would have then moved up on them, been that sixth man, and just can take the ball out of the big three's hands when they needed to take some rest. So I think Rondo for that would be absolutely great. Montrezl Harrell, great shout. I think that's really, really good. I was thinking, do the Nets need just a big body, like you say? So I was thinking maybe Markieff Morris from the Lakers. Obviously, I haven't watched him too closely, but they're kind of scrappy, kind of antagonists, which are kind of good to have on your team. We could grab an Antetokounmpo, get him on there just for a laugh. just to see what happens. Serge over on the Clippers, Serge Ibaka, I've loved him for a long time. I wanted him at the beginning of this season. I thought that would have been really good. But yeah, I think I'm just going to agree with what you guys say. But heading back to Matty Riley, he said odds on we end up with Pat Bev, which I think if he's one of them, if he's on your team, you absolutely love him. But as it stands, he's not on my team, and I don't love him. So just one of those things. And then one more little bit of news, a really super quick one, but this is the latest episode in KD's Twitter beef with someone. This time it is Scotty, I have a book to sell, Pippin, inserting himself into lots and lots of different conversations. But Pippin said in an interview about KD and the Bucks series, he said he needs to learn how to utilize his teams. He has to learn how to set up his teammates to be better. That's it. He was taking all the shots. You done played the whole game, bro. And if they've got guys physically wearing you down, you're going to lose. KD obviously clapped back saying that, hang on a minute, weren't you the fella that, spat his bottom lip out and didn't play the final seconds of the game because they were going to give it to Tony Kukoc, which, KD is still undefeated on Twitter, in my opinion. But I don't know what you guys made of this latest spat between these guys.
I mean, as you say, Pippin definitely has kind of got involved in lots and lots of things lately, and it's just I can't help but think if KD's feet weren't so big and he'd actually sunk that shot, would Pippin have piped up? No, he probably wouldn't have. You can kind of see where he's coming from in a sense. KD was doing literally everything. Can you blame KD? No, not really. He had no option but to. Kyrie and Harden, Kyrie out pretty much the whole time, Harden on one leg. KD had no option but to kind of put the team on his shoulders. And I think had he not done that, Pippin would have probably picked up and criticised him for not taking the reins and leaving it to others. In these moments, this is where the big players kind of step up. KD did, unfortunately. We just fell short. His toes, unfortunately, didn't fall short. They fell just about over the line, but we'll get onto that just shortly. But yeah, I can't understand why Pippin's getting thing where I'd seen him kind of mentioning about if he's better than LeBron, had he surpassed LeBron and stuff. And it's like, yes, LeBron took the Cavs through some kind of situations with some terrible teammates. But then LeBron, if he was in that situation, he'd 100% play every minute of the game. He'd be taking the shots. So yeah, I think it's some silly comments from Pippin.
Yeah, don't say something about KD without expecting him to bite back. And he must be just the king of arguments because he just always seems to win and no one seems to come back when KD says something. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an absolute load of rubbish what Pippin was saying. I mean, I think KD plays team basketball perfectly and he very rarely goes ISO like that, like obviously he did in Game 7, but he literally had no choice at the end. Harden was playing at 30-40%. And yeah, we'd have been going insane if the ball wasn't in his hands. And I just find it really interesting because what's the narrative that people actually want to go by about KD? Because the big thing seems to be you have to win by yourself. He's like, oh no, you need to prove yourself by winning by yourself. You keep joining these super teams. So like, what do people actually want? Do they want him to play by himself or do they want him to play with a team? It's just, yeah, it seems to change depending on what's actually going on at that time. So yeah, I don't actually care at all with Scottie Pippen, and he's went down in my estimations after some of the rubbish he's been spouting over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's absolutely on one. I don't really want to give him any more airtime on our platform. So yeah, just do one Scottie Pippen. You look like Squidward. So the time has come. We've been putting it off, but it's the next season is over, and it still feels a bit weird. I obviously went right on holiday after, like the day after, so it's a bit weird for me to kind of get back into it. I was in a nice little bubble building sandcastles with my daughter, but it's time to dig over the corpse of this Bucks series, do an autopsy on the next season, and I thought what we'd do is just kind of go through, instead of going through game by game by game, just kind of go through the main themes that kind of happened on this in this series. And I wanted to start on all the injuries, but starting off with Kyrie Irving, and obviously I put out a little video on Twitter of a little kind of switch up between a little piece of film of Kyrie Irving closing out a 3-point shooter on the perimeter, jumping into a space, but then having the wherewithal to move his feet so the shooter's got time to land. And then you juxtapose that with Giannis boxing out Kyrie while he's in the air, coming all up in his landing space, and Kyrie lands on Giannis's big old feet and turns an ankle, and that's him done for the rest of the season, essentially. So it left us another shot creator down, another ball handler down. And I'm going to say it, I think Giannis is dirty. What did you guys make of it?
Yeah, that was a dirty play, and I don't care what anyone says about it. They can say that he was trying to box him out, but as you said, he was mid-air. You don't box guys out mid-air. It's never happened. And there was a couple other plays where I thought, Giannis, what are you doing, man? Which there was another one that you shared as well. I think when he was did he shove Kyrie down? I can't remember. Yeah, it's just stupid basketball, and you can put it down to being clumsy all you like. Yeah, he's 7 foot, but come on, you don't do that when a guy's mid-air like that, especially on a layup. But yeah, in terms of the actual Kyrie's injury itself, at that point, I was like, that's it. It's done. It's done. As soon as he went down, I thought there's not a chance, because I thought Harden's not coming back at that point. And yeah, just Kyrie going down, it was just unfair. I mean, we've talked about it all season, where we've said once we get to the playoffs, we're going to be healthy. We're going to be healthy. And I think I was naive, and I think a lot of fans were naive to think that we'd be able to just turn off injuries like that. And obviously Kyrie's one. He's been the healthy guy this year. That's the thing that hurt the most. He's been the guy that's kept his health, and he's had an incredible year, and he was playing really, really well, I think. He maybe wasn't getting some of the scoring numbers in the playoffs, but some of the plays he had were just spectacular, and we really were hard done by not getting to see him for those last few games. And it's just so unfair. Obviously, with Harden going in and Kyrie going down, I don't care what anyone says. If we had those guys, we were gonna sweep that series. We were going to go to Milwaukee and we were going to beat them. And it just wasn't meant to be. And yeah, I feel really sorry for Kyrie, because you could see even like he tried to get up after that and tried to carry on. It looked like he was going to try and carry on playing, but brutal for him. And I really do feel for him, because he deserved it after quite a tough year. But yeah, it just wasn't meant to be for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real poor show. You obviously get the kind of freak accidents where a guy closes out and stuff like that. But yeah, Giannis, for a guy who I think is quite universally liked in the league, everyone sees him as quite a bit of a good guy. Maybe that narrative's maybe changed a little, but most people quite like him, like his kind of backstory, how he's kind of come to the position he's in. But yeah, it was a real shame, Kyrie going down. And like Aiden, when he went down, that did seem like it was it. We obviously managed to rally around. We got another 2 wins after that, and it was like, yeah, this is all right. We could probably do this. Harden coming back, and it was like, yeah, this is it. But Harden, as we kind of said earlier on, playing on one leg, very few people, in fact, would even attempt to do that. Yet he done that just to try and help the team out, and you can only really thank him for his efforts. You couldn't have really expected much from him. We did see he wasn't getting many points. He was just trying whatever he could to just try and make an impact, but it just wasn't the same. And as Aidan says, had we been healthy, not only would we have got past the Bucks, we would have went all the way. I'm not hearing otherwise. This was a series and a season derailed by injuries. It wasn't a series ended by us being absolutely atrocious, and one where you feel really sick and just it's really bad. I don't think we played that badly. Of course, there were points in games. There was a game or two we lost, and it was like, right, that was quite poor, but you can kind of give it playoffs games. You drop games here and there, but ultimately it was injuries that killed us. And so long as we can kind of stay injury free next season, that would be amazing. And we're kind of going back to trades. I don't know about the Lakers or the Clippers team, medical teams. Do you reckon we'd be able to do a deal and swap them with Spence? Just also, we seem to speak every week about the Nets medical team. They seem to have some amazing reputation around the league, but I don't know if we've just built them up too much. And it just, when everyone really mattered, everyone just crumbled. Harden forced himself back. Obviously, if it was the playoffs, he'd play this or that. 2 week injuries, been 6 week injuries, and you just wonder, there's just so many what ifs. But yeah, I think had they been fit, we'd have won this series, no bother. And yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it does make me sick. It's just one of those. It's just we've done all the right things going up to this series, and then just some stupid injuries, like you say, like we said earlier. It's just like you can be the healthiest guy in the world and do a hamstring. You can be the healthiest guy in the world, but if you jump up and then someone puts their big stupid foot where you're going to land, you're going to roll your ankle. Like you can't combat that. There's no there's no warm-ups you can do to limit that. Do you know what I mean? It does make you sick. But going back to James Harden, what a warrior, man. I think so. It's a grade 2 hamstring strain that he was playing with, which, if that happens the first week of the season, you're out multiple weeks. I think it's anywhere between 2 and 5 weeks. I think I read that you're out, and he was back. I don't know if he was just popped full of cortisone or whatever it was just to get him back onto the floor, but you could see he couldn't push the tempo, which probably resulted in the Nets kind of having fewer fast break points or sort of points off turnovers and that kind of thing, which, that's more often than not what games kind of hinge on. So you could see it. There was definitely one play, I should say, where I think he got the steal and it was just him at half court with no one, and he stopped. He just knew he couldn't because his leg had exploded. So it's rough. And I mean, with Kyrie out, Harden being the competitor he is, just said, bandage me up and put me back in, coach. So, and testament to that. Hopefully he can get a nice long rest this summer by not going to the Olympics like we've been talking about, and he can be back. But luckily we had Kevin Durant in this team, and I think it's safe to say, had we not had Kevin Durant on this team, it would have been a lot uglier, especially with some of the role players not turning up as they well should have, which we'll get onto later. But I've boiled KD's series down to 2 main points, and it was the 49-point game where he was, I should have pulled up the stats in front of me, but he was 49 and 15 and 10 or something, never been done in a playoff game before ever. And the last shot that never was, if KD wasn't a size 18, then the Nets don't go to overtime and the Nets win Game 7 at home. But alas, that's another parallel universe that we don't live in. So just guys, your thoughts on Kevin Durant and what he's meant to this Nets team in his first full healthy season.
I mean, nobody can doubt this man anymore. We kind of expected him to come back and still be pretty good. He's far surpassed that. Obviously, you can raise your level in the playoffs, and the level KD reached is a level that very few players, I think, have ever reached. That 49-point game that you just referenced, Matt, was one of the finest individual games of basketball I think we're likely to see this century, and I'd probably even go beyond that as well. It was just beautiful. Everything he done just seemed to work, and obviously tried it in many games, and just, as you said, in the kind of final game, his shoes being too big. And there was an interesting anecdote. I was watching the Sky Sports coverage, and Mo Moonsey, the hoop genius, actually said that KD he's either a size 16 or 17, but he likes to kind of room in his feet on the court. So he had a bigger size shoe on. If I had the normal size shoe on, it would have been a 3-pointer. And hearing that, I just wish Mo hadn't mentioned it, because you're just thinking, why have you done this? But it was like, it was an absolutely phenomenal shot, and we managed to get a few more minutes of basketball. And I mean, it was just, I think that kind of the final shot where he airballed it just epitomised everything. He'd given literally everything. He'd exhausted himself. And there was just nothing left. And you can't really blame him for missing it. He tried, and that was it. I think there's a lot more that went wrong in this series, and it certainly wasn't KD's fault. There was very little that KD did that was something that you could criticise or what went wrong, other than the shoe size, I think. That's it. And it is sickening to think that it literally came down to 1 or 2 inches. And it does amaze me, basketball, at times, to think that a 7-game series can come down to one possession. And
Yeah, it's gutting, but I mean, KD has been absolutely phenomenal and putting up just incredible numbers, historical numbers in a mammoth amount of minutes, including playing 48 minutes in one game. And Cammy, you mentioned earlier about the Nets medical staff. I do need to give them props because that guy came off an Achilles injury and he managed to play that amount of minutes. So they've managed to get him back to that level, and you do need to give them a certain amount of credit. Because you do need to remember that is part of the reason why he chose to come to the Nets, because he wanted to rehab here, and just to see him play like that, and probably it's his prime. He's the best I've ever seen him, certainly since I've watched basketball. It is just absolutely gutting that it had to end in that way, and I don't think there's anyone that should have been. If there's anyone else, should I say, that should have been getting the photographs at the end with the Finals MVP trophy than Kevin Durant. And I know that's it. It's the photos, you kind of see them in your head of just him standing there like that. And it is absolutely devastating that it had to end that way after just some of the most incredible basketball that we'll ever see. And it's just a couple of inches. Honestly, that's all it was. It's absolutely gutting. I will say that last shot with the air ball, that we probably should have taken a timeout before that, and he would have nailed it after that as well. There's little things, and you can nitpick it as much as you want, but it just wasn't meant to be. But we can still enjoy the fantastic basketball that we did see.
Yeah, if there was any doubt of what percentage of KD we were getting post Achilles injury, I think we got 110% of KD back. Show me a better basketball player in the world, and it's impossible. And he's just been an absolute joy to watch. Left it all out there. What I think might be the case is this is just going to spur the big three on again to make it in Brooklyn and bring some championships here, because they were so close to beating this thing. And I think, as well as the Hawks have played, I don't think anyone was thinking they were going to get past Philly and be in the position they are now. I think that's a series you go in confident. So, but we're just torturing ourselves talking about the what could have been. But we're going to chat about role players now, but we're going to start with the good. And I just thought we'd touch on Blake Griffin, who I think has to be the first person you re-sign next year out of everyone. Super scrappy, shot something like 40% from three for this series. Absolutely off the head. What did you guys make of Blake from this series? I was absolutely in love with him. Not as in love with him as our friend Elliot is, but love the guy. Love a bit of Blake.
Yeah, I thought he was absolutely excellent. And yeah, I mean, you'll remember Blake. He would have had his own section in the end of season DVDs if he won, about just his scrappiness and his desire. And I think for what I'll remember Blake about this series, I just thought he was absolutely excellent on Giannis. And I think we did touch on it in the last podcast, that I just think he played his role really well. And maybe he did get found out a little bit towards the end of the series, but I mean, what an adjustment for a guy who came from Detroit, and he was the man. He was the man in Detroit. He was the best player, and he just adjusted himself, and he understood his role perfectly, and he was making plays to win. And I don't think we can underestimate how important he was here. And I think you're spot on, Matt. He has to be one of the first guys that we need to try and get back next year, because I think he is invaluable. And he just demonstrates that Brooklyn grit that we've maybe not seen for the last couple of years. And I just think he has been excellent, and you could see his desire to win. And he did speak at the end of the Game 7 and said that he hadn't had a chance to obviously think about his next plans. He did say it was only an hour and a half out of the last game. He's like, that's not in my mind right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if Blake came back next year. I think he's fully bought into what this is all about. And I don't think you'll see the season as a disappointment. I mean, obviously his goal was to come and win a ring. Everyone's was. But I don't think you'll see it as a disappointment. I think he fully understands why we lost. And I hope we see him back next year.
Yeah, Tyler, at BKN Nets London on Twitter came through with a listener question. He said he has a very, very good point. He says, with Blake due 20+ million from Detroit next season, do you think he'll run it back with us on a vet minimum for another shot at a ring? I can absolutely see that happening. If he's happy to take it now, there's no reason why he wouldn't be happy to keep it at vet minimum next year, so the Nets can retool and get some more bits around them. But yeah, massive from great. Shout out to Jeff Green as well, who I thought was great. Obviously, was dealing with that foot-butt injury, like that plantar fascia, whatever it was, like obviously nagging him. I think he did come back and played hurt. He obviously wasn't as explosive as he had been before the injury. But if we're going to talk about role players and we're going to talk about this Bucks series, we need to talk about Joe. And we had a listener question from the Mark A. Robert from Twitter that just said, Joe Harris, discuss. So what happened? What happened to our boy? What happened to him?
From going from a star role player, as Forbes described him in Blake Griffin, to the man who was probably supposed to be that star role player in Joe Harris. Joe, as much as it pains me to say, choked when it really mattered in the playoffs. A regular season sharpshooter, the leading 3-point scorer, unbelievable shooter. But kind of near the end of the season, we pointed it out. I think we were a bit reluctant in the kind of final weeks of the season. We didn't want to admit that our kind of love for Joe Harris was too strong to say that he was doing badly, and it just kind of the poor form in the final few weeks of the season carried into the playoffs, and he just never got going. And it's a shame he wasn't the only role player not to kind of turn up, but when you're paying a guy that much and when he's performed that well in the regular season, you at least expect some kind of output from him. But there were far too many games when he just blew so cold, and yeah, it's a really tough one to kind of see. We all love Joe to pieces, and there's been so many suggestions that he should be traded. And I think I can understand why these have come about. If we're to improve the team in any which way, you'd imagine he's going to be part of conversations, even though the teams who are likely to trade for him have seen him kind of brick the playoffs. That could well have been just a confidence thing. I think if you've had a few weeks shooting badly, it's going to take its toll on you mentally. And there was someone in the Discord who'd mentioned perhaps getting him dealt with a mental coach, just having him by his side, kind of consistently telling him, you can do it. And that could make the difference. So I hope that Joe's still around next season. But you'd imagine if we're looking to kind of make a big trade, he's probably going to be one of the ones sacrificed.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't good enough. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago in the Sixers series that he went really quiet and poor then, and a few years ago, and at the time I just put it down to inexperience, and I just thought it wouldn't happen again. But I mean, I do think some of the hate that he has received is really unfair, but he does deserve to be criticised. And I'm not going to zone in on particular plays. I mean, you can talk about that open three that he had in Game 7 or the kind of mid-ranger that he had in Game 3, but he just didn't make his shots in general, and never mind the ones in the crucial moments. He just never really got hot at all. And it's one of those things you talk about potentially trading him. Is it a good idea? I mean, his trade value is probably at its lowest it's been in a long time. And is it a good time to trade a guy like that? Probably not. You want to trade these guys when they've got good value. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we love Joe Harris. We love him, and I am gutted for him at kind of first and foremost. But he was putting the blame on himself, so he understands kind of what happened. But it just can't happen again. I mean, you can't have that happen in a game as big as that, where you just go cold like that, because you do become a negative on the team. And yeah, you could see that some of the other guys are kind of getting on at him a wee bit. But yeah, I don't think they'll trade him, but he just needs to make sure that it never happens again, because it's so important, especially when he's earning that amount of money.
Isra, do you know how many points that he averaged per game for this series?
Oh, it's 7 if you're lucky.
9. And he shot, wherever I got it in front of me, he shot 16 of 49 from 3, which is good for 32%, which for a man that shoots 15% better than that in the regular season, there's got to be some kind of mental toughness coach out there, and like a holistic kind of I'm into my rugby, and I know there was one of the England teams that won the World Cup. They were like proper into like the kind of mental side of it as well. So maybe that's something that I'm not ready to give up on him. He shouldn't go anywhere. I think I can't see the Nets giving up on him that quickly. So unless KD and Kyrie and James Harden really put down the foot and were like, he needs to be gone, which I can't see them doing at all. Joe.
Matt, your mic's disconnected.
How's that?
There we go.
There we go. I was just getting all up in my feelings about Joe Harris. It's a good point.
Oh, it's happened again.
There we go. Come on now. Third time's a charm. You make a good point about him potentially being overpaid. I've got into a lot of arguments with people about Joe Harris's contract this season. They'll know who they are if they listen to this, but you can't be a good regular season 3-point shooter and then choke it in the playoffs. It's as simple as that. But yeah, for everyone saying that he needs to be traded, I don't think it's going to happen. But here we are. But from one person who we should really get behind and not slag off to one person that we can absolutely get our teeth into and slag off for as long as we want. We've been going nearly an hour, but I've got all the time in the world to talk about this. Giannis's free throws, man. Why is it? Thank you, Matty Riley. Giannis getting a full shot clock for his free throws. Why is it that one man is allowed to legitimately not play by the rules? You might as well be able to take an extra step after you've gathered the ball. You might as well, have a 26-second shot clock. The referees enforced this rule once with taking over 10 seconds to shoot a free throw. Why is it fine? I don't know. So all the teams that played Milwaukee have complained about this. Obviously, big up to the Barclays Center crowd for counting along and doing the screen grabs of their phone timers and things like that. But I don't get it. Someone explain it to me. Someone, please.
I don't get it either, to be honest with you. It is just weird. I think I saw that he averaged 12.89 seconds or something like that per free throw in this series. And yeah, it's just weird that he gets away with it. I mean, that one referee that gave it, no one complained to him when it happened. It's not like people are going absolutely mental when they're making the decision. It's the rules at the end of the day. No one actually complains about it. And yeah, it just feels like they can be scared at times because you can see them considering it and then never actually following through with it. So yeah, I don't even think it's just that. I mean, Giannis gets away with traveling. He gets away with push-offs all the time. And I'm not going to sound like a bad loser, but I know stars get their calls, but he just seems to get his way with it all the time. And yeah, he's really incredibly talented as a player. But yeah, and it's a bit worrying that a guy who misses half his free throws when he spends half the game standing at line practicing them, which is just insane. But look, you can mump and moan about it all you want, but they're not going to change it. It doesn't look like they're going to change it. And yeah, it's just going to be one of these things that certain guys get away with it, and it's so frustrating. I think James Harden was the best one that just kind of turned around to the referee and going, come on. Even when he was on the sidelines, he was going like that, come on. But yeah, it was just really, really disappointing to see that the referees aren't enforcing the rules, because it will sort the game out. And I think personally, free throws is the most boring part of basketball in my eyes. I really don't like them. So more guys kind of standing at line for that amount of time, it just frustrates me even further.
I mean, the NBA have also announced a change in the rules with regards to kind of awkward shooting positions, kind of, the shots, of Trae Young, James Harden's leaning in, kind of contorting themselves. Given they've kind of changed that players seem to get away with for ages and ages, and obviously there are people who'd complain about it. Maybe if there's enough complaints, but I mean, I can't actually think of many people who take as long as Giannis to take free throws. It is unbelievable. Obviously, as we said, all the countdowns, all the count ups. Just, I think the Nets even had kind of the clock going on the kind of jumbotron. It was just, yeah, it was unbelievable, and also the fact Giannis would then go and miss half of these free throws, as Aidan said. So why bother wasting your time when you know you're going to brick the free throw, and on some cases not even make the rim? I think that was one of the longest ones he actually waited to take, and got nowhere near the hoop. But yeah, unbelievable that he got away with that. And I mean, yeah, it does make us sound a bit like sore losers, but when it is quite literally the rules, you can kind of be allowed with to make a few complaints, I think.
Yeah, it's one of them. It's like I saw they were going to put that that new rule in, the Trae Young, James Harden rule, and it's like you say, it's just like you can't even. The rules the rules are already there. Just enforce it. It's just super, super annoying. What they should have done is just game one, call it every single time. So it's not like you're, spoiling the whole series. Just like, no, do it every single time, and that's it. And then it will get drummed into him, and then you can play the rest of it. Set your intentions early as a referee, and follow it. I don't know what the hell's going on, but someone in the comment is just telling us to dab, but it's not 2016 anymore, mate. So calm down. So yeah, I think I'm even getting on at the people that are watching us. So that's not cool, is it? I think so. So in a sentence, what's gone wrong? How do you feel? For me, it's just injuries and bad luck. What do you guys make of it?
Yeah, same line for me.
Yeah, injuries, bad luck. It wasn't bad coaching, wasn't the opposition. It was the fact we couldn't stay healthy. That was it.
That's it. And it goes to show that, the Bucks have been, near the top of the NBA for the last few years, and all it took was for Kyrie Irving to go down, James Harden to be on one leg, them to bend the rules when they need to, our role players to go cold. And they still only squeaked past us in a game 7 overtime. So here we are. This guy's gone mental in the comments. What is he doing? What Michael Jackson said? Oi, all right. Yeah, all right. Sorry, I didn't read that through. He's got to go. How's he got? Has he gone? Yeah, sweet. Okay.
Him.
Good work. Jesus Christ. But right, so I think that's a safe place. Continue to sound off in the comments if you do have any more thoughts about this Bucks series. But we're going to go on to some listener questions. So from Shugs at the Green Release on Twitter, he said, "You're the GM for a day, and you get to make one realistic trade to improve the squad, whether it be shift one of the big three to bring them depth on the bench. What are you doing and why?" What do you guys think? We've already discussed it a little bit, but if there's anything we didn't cover off.
I'm trying to think.
No, do you want me to go first, Cammy?
Yeah, go for it, because I am kind of in two minds about what I'm thinking with regard to trading folk.
Bam, Joe Harris for Miles Turner. That's going to be my trade. I quite liked what Matty was saying earlier. I think it's been thrown around quite a lot, and I think it's just one of the only trades for the money to actually work. But yeah, someone like that, Miles Turner, would just revolutionise our defence, and they're looking at selling. So yeah, maybe try and go for someone like that. Just get some rebounding, defend big bodies, rim protection. His value isn't at his highest either. They're kind of looking to go more Sabonis at the 5 apparently, and kind of put him on the trade block. So yeah, something like that. I don't think I can bear another season where we don't have someone that can be at the rim and block big guys. I don't actually care who it is anymore. I take Dwight Howard at this rate, but yeah, someone like that, or even just what was mentioned earlier about a Dinwiddie side and trade for Montrezl Harrell for similar reasons. So yeah, something like that. We need a big. I don't care how we get one, but I still think we need someone in there, because small ball in certain situations just makes it so difficult to get through certain games. And I think we'll be much better next year in terms of obviously the health reasons. But yeah, just get a big body in there. That's all I want.
I think hearing that trade out, I'd probably go the same. I don't know if you're going to include picks or other kind of players in that, but yeah, the centre is the position that we need. I was going to have a bit of a cop out and say I'm not sure, because I think any barring the big three could literally be moved on this summer, and we could have an entirely different roster barring those three. So I guess you could say, ask me this kind of during the off season when things are a bit clearer, or halfway through next season. It's quite hard when things are not necessarily up in the air. I've not seen many rumours about stuff, but just kind of trying to work out with kind of contracts expanding where we'll actually be sitting. Is our centre going to be the main priority? Could we be down to just kind of one kind of KD like player, like a small forward, a power forward? Would that be an area we'd need to? But yeah, I think based on now, I'd probably say Miles Turner would be a fantastic pickup. Whether Joe Harris, you'd imagine Joe Harris would probably be enough. Both players, as Aidan says, values are maybe dropped a little bit, so it might be a move that both teams could make to kind of get a decent player back in return who they could maybe make a reclamation project.
Nice, yeah, that's a good shout. I'm gonna zig when you guys zag. Obviously, we've spoken about Montrezl Harrell, we've spoken about Serge Ibaka, which obviously are the big bodies. Is it time to get JJ Reddick back home? Obviously, if you weren't aware, every article you will read about JJ Reddick is he lives in Brooklyn, so there's that connection. And his wife has an art collection or something. But
that's a nice house. There's a video on YouTube. Aidan put me onto that one. Lots of art in that house.
But I think so that could be a nice shout. Obviously, Joe Harris insurance, maybe if he decides to go cold, you can wheel out 30 million year old JJ Reddick. How old is he now? I've got it in front of me.
He must be 39, 40.
37 as of now. So he'll be 38.
He's just a young man.
Yeah, he's prime of his life. But is that an option? But yeah, it's an interesting one. Like you say, it's a lot of off season still to be done to make stuff going this early. But yeah, Sean Marks will absolutely have it covered over. So thanks for that, Shugs. This next one from Double Clutch UK's resident Knicks fan, Nick Whitfield, on Twitter says, with the presumably healthy Nets, in my opinion, the favourites for the title next season, as Nets fans, who would you see as your biggest rivals going into next season, given what we know now?
I'll say, based on now, probably the Bucks again. You'd imagine if they don't win it this year, they'll kind of try and go all in for the sake of keeping Giannis happy. And whether that's possible, I don't know, but they've been a solid regular season team for several years now. With the Sixers and Ben Simmons possibly parting ways, that could disrupt things there. So you'd probably say the Bucks. I'm going to say as well, the Atlanta Hawks. Now, this could be a shout purely. We've seen how good they have been with Trae Young kind of lighting up in the playoffs and performing phenomenally. If they manage to add a piece or two, they could actually become really dangerous. We've seen, kind of as we discussed earlier, the difference a Chris Paul trade made for the Suns. Maybe just an experienced head in that Hawks team could completely change the dynamic of that team, and they could really make it hard for us. I'm presuming that Nick is just going on about the regular season, but if we're talking playoffs, again, it's really hard. In the West, I think we were basically saying that it's going to be Lakers-Nets final. Lakers also had their injury issues like we did. If AD stays fit, LeBron's able to perform to a high level, you certainly fancy them to be thereabouts. But then the Suns, as we've already said, you could have another team like that next season. The Mavs, if they trade Porzingis, they might get a decent player who could help Luka Doncic out, and they could be a problem. I think it's a really interesting season next season, potentially.
Yeah, I kind of mimic what you said about the playoffs. I'm not worried about the East at the moment in terms of what we've seen. If the Nets were healthy, I'm not worried against anyone. The Sixers lost against the Hawks. They're not there to be worried about, and I'm not worried about the Hawks personally either. I don't think the Nets would be a good matchup for them. I could see us doing really well against them. And the Bucks, we nearly beat them with one and a half stars, really, didn't we? So, I would say definitely the West is going to be the place to worry about next year. I think the Suns obviously have taken a massive leap, and they're no joke. The Clippers are still a really, really good team, and they're only going to get better. Again, it's two teams that you can worry about potentially. Could be the Sixers if they make moves. At the moment, I'm not too worried, but Ben Simmons could get traded somewhere. Imagine if they bring in Dame Lillard. That could be as big as a Harden trade if they bring in Dame Lillard. So, and the Lakers, you've got to think with LeBron's clock, which Father Time never seemed to end for him. But I think it could be getting to that stage now where they're going to put all their chips in just for another run for a chip with LeBron. So be really interesting to see what they do as well. But yeah, I just think a healthy Nets team wins it this year comfortably at the moment, which hurts a lot because as of now, obviously, we should be in the Eastern Conference Finals, probably nearly in the finals, and it should be next year. We should be in the exact same situation. But yeah, obviously, next question was as of now, but there's still plenty of time for moves to be made. And you've got to think if teams are making moves, they're looking at the Nets as their benchmark, and everyone's going to try and improve next year. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. And I don't think it's going to be easy as some are making out, but at the moment, the Nets are definitely going to be the favourites.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think I saw something about obviously the Suns being as great a team as they are. They've for each opponent that they've faced in this playoffs, they've had a key player out. So obviously, as at the time of recording, when they're playing the Clippers, I think Kawhi Leonard's sitting. They had Jamal Murray out when they played Denver. All this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of talent to come back to these West Coast teams. But yeah, I echo what you guys think, as I so often do with your guys' insight. But I think, yeah, the East, I ain't scared of no one in the East for the points you guys have said. And I think you got to look out West. And yeah, I think the Clippers, they're still my kind of dark horse to come away with everything. But I just wish the next season started in a couple of weeks, man. I don't know. I think we're going to back to our regularly scheduled kind of time frame for when the season kicks off this year. So we've got a little old time to wait, which sucks. But it is what it is. We're coming for it. I'm chomping at the bit to start off the next season, and I'm sure that this Nets team will be too. But that's it, really. We've gone well over an hour, which is really cool. But there was a lot to get through that's gone on since the end of the playoffs, and a lot to talk about with this Bucks series. So unless there's anything else you guys wanted to pick up on, we'll get out of here.
No, can't think of anything. We're all good here.
Love that. Well, there's a lot of off season to come in front of us, and we're gonna have to find some bits and bobs to talk about. We've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline and some fun stuff to be getting on with. But let us know what you want to hear. Obviously, DM us, hit us up on Twitter. That's the best place to get us. But yeah, thanks for coming through for this episode of BK to UK. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, whatever you can on whatever platform you're listening to help us spread the word. And yeah, we'll see you next time. See you later.